It's been a journey. So I don't know how much kind of of my previous. So I ended up. So I was a Green Party member. I left Labour back in 21. Obviously, as I saw, just obviously the direction of travel and kind of generally the dishonesty is just something I just find so offensive in politics. So yeah, I left Labour, joined Greens, and then I noticed that when it came to the selection period in the email rounds, it had opened twice and no one had put their name forward. So I realised, well, I wouldn't have anyone to vote for if no one else stood. So I kind of thought, well, everything I was telling myself, I wouldn't tell my two daughters, about kind of their voice being legitimate to kind of get involved. This is a dream for me. I would love to be involved publicly. And I think we need to see more people that actually understand what people have been going through. I'm not going to hide it. We've been in poverty since the cost of living hit. So I had to withdraw from a law degree and, there's all of that. So I know what people are going through in the struggle, and I've seen how poverty entrenches people. And then it's kind of this captive population of people that can kind of be demonized and attacked in the press, when in reality, they're not being given the access or the ability to break out of that and to become economically active and, thrive. So yeah, kind of a big part of it for me was to just try and make sure there was a different conversation going on than we're seeing, really. But yeah, so I put myself forward. I was backed up and nominated by the few members of the local party. And then everything was great, all going well. And I am very outspoken, as you can see, about Palestine and everything that's going on. I'm helping a family over there at the minute, and I've been speaking with a friend of mine since October. So it is very important to me. And because I'm outspoken, my legal background, kind of law is my passion. But unfortunately, that did mean that I got quite a lot of bad publicity from, the Telegraph and the Independent and kind of right-wing media. My local party had my back entirely. But then I got a call to say that they were withdrawing support from me as a candidate. So then kind of I got there was a lot of tears. And then I got a lot of pushes kind of saying, will you stand independently? And then, kind of the Thursday came around, and all of a sudden I have, this backing of Time to Assemble. And I've decided to kind of team up with them to try and bring bottom-up politics to my hometown, so that it's about the people deciding the policy rather than, this kind of top-down, we know best. Ultimately, it's always been the people that have led progressive change in this country. So yeah, that's kind of a big part of my mission. Basically, I think it was because of the pressure they were under. I think it's a deep shame, to be honest. There's been a massive upswell of support for them because they weren't afraid to be bold. Like Zach Belansky, huge respect for him, in him standing out, and not being afraid to back down as a Jewish, a Jewish person themselves. But sadly, I think kind of the pressure gave in, they capitulated, and, they rang me on the following Monday to say, we still want you to be our candidate. Will you come back? But for me, it's just been the wake-up call that party politics is breaking our democracy. And ultimately, because I work with Make Votes Matter as well on a volunteer basis, ultimately we need to change our politics. We need to understand that it's a rich democracy with lots of perspectives, with lots of different views. We've all had our own experiences. We've all got a right to share those experiences. And ultimately, if I can't expect people to respect, I'll never hide I'm a socialist. I am a lefty, through and through. But I'm never going to hide that. I know who I am. But at the same time, I can't expect people to respect my perspective if I can't respect others. So yeah, when they kind of came forward, I just thought, party politics, I think I just need to be independent, take the kind of censoring and kind of control over what I was saying, and kind of what we're able to offer, so that I can actually say what people want to hear, because I hear from constituents already, I know that they're responding well to what I am putting out there. So yeah, that's basically it. I was cleared. I'm not anti-Semitic. They said that, put it in writing. I wasn't suspended, nothing. There was no investigation. There wasn't even a conversation. So yeah, it's independent, away from the parties. This is really what we want. If we really want to get a good opposition to the incoming kind of right-wing Labour Party, then we need strong, united, kind of left front in a sense. And if that's the goal, rather than money in the coffers, rather than kind of say that long game, then we need to just focus on that. Well, I think a big strength of mine is, and I think I've proven it, I don't back down to bullies. I am not afraid to do what is hard. And I think that unfortunately we've got so many politicians that are happy to kind of, toe the line, when ultimately, if that's not actually what your constituents and the people want to hear and the people want to see, then what is your goal? Is it power? Is it, because it's clearly not the priority of the people. So for me, I think my biggest strength is that, let's say I know what people are going through. I'm a normal person. Do you know what I mean? I'm going through it. And this is my ambition, like this. I would love to actually make a difference and show my daughters how to make a difference. And I'm involved with my community, and this is my hometown. I think I'm the only, apart from maybe the Reform candidate, I'm the only candidate that is from Warrington, that, family lives in Warrington, my children go to school in Warrington. So I want to see the change, because I'm as much invested. I've got a stake in that as everyone around me. And also, and another thing I think is that our politics have become so polarized. And I think the division and the hate, people are exhausted. And for me, it's about bringing all voices in now. It's about, and you know what, yes, we'll have different views, but the way the assembly works means that, it encourages people to lean in. I want politics to not be a dirty word anymore. I want to get people engaged and see that it's our society ultimately that benefits from that, engagement. So yeah, and like say, I will always be, I can't really avoid it. I will always be who I am. And I'm very honest, very open, very transparent, which I know is kind of unusual in politics now. So yeah, I do really think that that's just my point of difference. You know what I mean? Like, I will stand for what's right, even if it means, it's not easy. If I'm elected, the way it would then work is we would have assemblies across all the wards. So we would appeal out for anyone who wants to, get involved, put their name in the hat, because it's a relaxed thing, when they come together, especially when it's constituency. So when it's constituency wide, you're looking at about 100, 150 people from the constituency, all split on separate tables, kind of per ward situation. And then we'd invite everyone to kind of discuss the issues that matter to them and, have a good chat about what it is that's bothering them, issues that they can see. And then after that, obviously we take note of all that. And then after that, we go, right, okay, now what policies, how do you think we could address this? What do you think is the best way forward? Give your ideas. And then for each table, we take, kind of see 5 ideas, kind of take forward 5 of those policy ideas kind of to the front of the room. And then it goes to a vote. And that is democracy in action. Do you know what I mean? It is actual democracy. People will see it. You know what I mean? They can feel it. They can hear it. They can see it. It's happening. It's not someone down in London or someone in an office somewhere. They're involved. And then that policy, their decisions, their insights, their issues is what guides my priorities and guides what I'm raising awareness of. Because obviously there are focus points for me in terms of where my passions are. So I need that variety and all those rich voices kind of coming in to make sure that people are feeling heard. Because I really do think, like we're seeing across Europe, this massive surge of the far right, we've ended up with a system. Our 2 parties are both right wing. And it's, it is scary. And I think it calls on us to really push back with a hopeful, actual hope that's tangible, that people can see and see how it works, to really push back against that. Because otherwise it does, it does scare me kind of with the direction everything is going. The main kind of focus points for me is kind of our housing side. Locally to me, we've seen a massive loss of our greenbelt land. We've got I'm in a tiny kind of beautiful village that I am so in love with, but we've had all these developments kind of put in and approved that were approved on the condition that they would put infrastructure in place to support it, make sure we've got, all the amenities we need, the post offices, the dentists, the doctors. We've got none. We've not got a single one without travelling miles out. I mean, I haven't had a dentist in years anyway. My children do, obviously, so don't worry, they're not neglected. But yeah, so for me, it's that housing is a big one, about kind of making sure that we're looking for alternative solutions. This is somewhere where I do support Green Party policy. I'm tired of this just throwing big figures out and saying, build new, build all this. Eventually land runs out. And there's so many benefits that come from our green belt. I know it for my community, it's a constant stress. It's what people have reached out to me about. It's what people have seen, that they really need people to really stand strong. And given we've had a Labour council and a Labour MP for so long, and the amount of money they've wasted in dodgy investments, I just think they really need someone that isn't afraid to really hold that accountable and really ask the tough questions and push that. So that's one focus I know for sure. Another one is kind of community investment. I think one thing I really see in my area and across our constituency is, just the lack of, we see it anyway, don't we? The lack of youth services or anywhere for young people to go, the lack of any kind of service generally to kind of reduce isolation, improve kind of loneliness in our communities, which in turn, takes the burden off the NHS and our mental health services. Because it is, I've seen it, I've had my mental health struggles in the past, and then I've seen how much better as soon as I connect into my community and I have that it makes such a difference. It's Maslow's hierarchy, isn't it? Basically, you need that connection, that security, and that belonging to your area, or to kind of for you to build and thrive from that. So I know that is another thing that's really important, to actually just see some care being put in, because it is very politicized. We've seen a big investment kind of go into our ward, but of 2 million, I think it's 2 million approximately, has gone to Burton Ward and nothing 2 hours. And it is that I just want some equality, some equity in, and I think that's what people are really calling for, to stop feeling left behind, forgotten, like we're being pitted against each other, and divided. So yeah, it's kind of ultimately, say a lot of it is about pulling people in. I'm going in quite a lot now. Another one is our transport and obviously our utilities. Kind of, I will obviously that's more of a national thing, and transport is local. But I want to bring all our bus services. It's crazy that our bus shelter is paid for and managed by the council, yet our services are private, and that disconnect means then that money there's. What is the incentive to invest in our bus shelters so that they are fit for purpose? It isn't fit for purpose, our Warrington one. So it's kind of improving that efficiency, accessibility, and actually start to make it make sense and bring everything that is essential that we need into state ownership. So the incentive is about making them better services for the people, and then reinvesting anything in to obviously, improve the services. And then obviously I push for taxes. There's a lot to be said around. I don't know if you've seen Gary Stevenson. He is kind of someone I very much turn to for my real kind of economic understanding. But whenever I've spoken to people, I had a conversation which it blew my mind several weeks ago now. I was in the local and meeting with the parish kind of community, and one of the locals kind of came up to me. I'd not spoken to him before. He knew who I was. And he just kind of came, listen, I'm a Tory. I'm a millionaire. I'm a builder. And he did his first question was straight into, what are you going to do about the Muslim infiltration into the Green Party, which obviously I didn't get down from. I can do a respectful debate, so we had a good respectful debate for half an hour. But even me, with, a Tory voter, when we got onto the economy and I started to talk about kind of my understanding of it from what I've gleaned is that, the cycle is broken. Ultimately, if all the money is just being funneled up, and up to the top, and it's not, the cycle, if it's not coming back down, because ultimately wealth is generated on the backs and the spending power of the people of this country. It's not just magicked up by someone at the top of the business. It takes work and labour and spending. So if that wealth that's being generated through all of that isn't then is coming back down to reinvest in the society that keeps, in the infrastructure and services that keep our society going, then ultimately, is it any surprise we're in the situation we're in now? So yeah, as soon as I kind of talked about that, straight away then he left saying he was going to be voting Green. I hope I'm going to pull him back over to my side now. But it is about, that's what I want. And that's what I've really found is that having those conversations rather than these polarized debates, it makes such a difference. It is staying on our society that we are so dependent on kind of food bank situation and people are so struggling so much with the cost of living. So for me, I've kind of got this idea that I want to kind of go forward with in my community and wider, of kind of having these active community engagements every week, whether it be, because we have a zero food waste initiative that goes around the whole kind of constituency. I want to kind of use that food and make big community meals kind of thing, pull everyone in. But it's not on it'd be like a pay what you can afford kind of situation. So it's, some people might not be able to manage anything. Some people might be able to put £5-10 in to feed their family, but then bring the community in. It's all totally anonymous. No one would see how much is paid, but bring that community in. Because once you get them in a room together and you take, people soon warm up, people soon relax into it. It's not the issues that divide us, it's the parties. And it's this polarization, the media, because ultimately, who does it serve if we're all divided? You only have to look back to the Aristotle quote, and there's plenty to pick from over the years. But it serves power and, wealth to divide us and kind of weaken us. Whereas ultimately, we are all one. It's the same issues that affect us. We just maybe don't have the right language for how we want to address it, or the right means and access to even feel like you're part of that conversation. So that's what I just want to start, is kind of ease people in, get that conversation going. Obviously I want to pull them into our assemblies as well. But I just want to create as many opportunities as possible, because I know what it's like to send an email to your MP and not feel like there's any sort of kind of resonance or interest. That I want it to feel like people can just come and talk to me. I'm a very open person. And that's kind of what I want to bring. I am just a real person. I'm not going to be putting on an act. I am hardworking, I'm intelligent, but at the same time, I want it to be, at the end of the day, I'm just a representative of the people. I'm not anything better than anyone. So that's kind of my goal, is to just try and make people comfortable in it again. Obviously, I'm becoming more aware as people are reaching out to me now. I was quite a standalone voice on this. I haven't seen anyone, don't get me wrong, it all came out with for Ukraine, but I think it's not so much they don't care. People are kind of scared. There's this bully atmosphere that kind of we're seeing across the media, this intimidation atmosphere, it's kind of made people go, oh, I don't know what I can say. That people kind of shut down, because obviously with Ukraine, it was, oh yeah, let's get back Ukraine as we should. But at the same time, there was that, they were encouraged to care. Whereas this time round, and it is something that isolated me for a long time, kind of was very conscious. I was the only person kind of shouting about it, which I think just made me shout louder. So it is something I'm wanting to get that conversation going. And I have seen it. So it was, it's a big step in the sense that there was we had a quiz recently for D-Day, and it was mentioned by my really good friend, Bob, while he was leading the quiz. And that's the first mention I've heard in my town of it. So I already know that kind of them seeing someone comfortable and bold enough to actually go, you know what, I'll have this conversation. You know, at the end of the day, it is worth taking responsibility for. And so kind of then I've noticed then that conversation is starting to happen. People are feeling more comfortable to actually say it out loud and acknowledge that it isn't right. That this needs to stop. It never started. But yeah, it's starting to happen, but it's definitely something I think constituents in Warrington North need to feel empowered to do. And I know that I've been reached out to by so many, whether it's Labour voters who've reached out and said they can't in good conscience vote Labour, so they wanted to know my Palestine stance. I have been inundated with emails about the pledge for the PSC, which obviously I've done. And, you know, people need to see it so that they kind of go, okay, I've got permission to, you know, to speak about it, to share it. You know, I'm not, you know, it's not a radical act to care. They're playing both sides, and I think it's incredibly cynical. It's it just makes me go, how can anyone trust their stance, you know? And if they're prepared to be kind of virtue signal when it suits them, and you know, but then enable and condone when it suits them for whether it's the donors or whatever they're trying to woo, you know, ultimately, how does if I just think they've enabled this from the start. It was an affront to me as someone who wanted to be a human rights lawyer and international lawyer to see Keir Starmer at the beginning of this, when all of us could see that it was totally disproportionate and totally barbaric what was being done with the siege. And he just, you know, he legitimized it. And it's so irresponsible when you are someone with a legal background, with a past. So irresponsible. And I think if that hadn't happened, we'd see a lot more people around the country speaking up. I do think that kind of that tag team, I think it's a massive letdown to the public and the way that they've handled it. And I have to say, the minute I started to feel censored by the Greens, you know, because it was a few days of saying, no, don't share anything. And it felt, to be honest, it made me feel sick. Because every single day since October 7th, I've been every day. It's felt like a responsibility. I've got a network across the country that I've connected with, you know, that I couldn't afford to go to the protest in London. So someone who couldn't get there paid my ticket for me to travel down to be there, you know, and this I've been very engaged. And as soon as I felt that, I can't see it felt sickening inside. And that then makes me kind of go, okay, all of these politicians, you know, yes, they might say, well, I do care, but I don't, you know, and people might say, oh, yeah, but she can't say anything because she'll get in trouble. I've been on this side of it, and I see how sickening it feels if you actually do care, if you actually do oppose it. So their silence speaks volumes to me. So yeah, I think now they're going to come around in this election as trying to be, we're against it. And I know there's been a call for kind of a motion on the council here, and it's for show. And that's what's really disappointing, is it is for show. And it's okay. And it's like we're seeing the Tory politicians going to food banks now. It's like, you know what people want to hear. You know what people need to see. You only care now that you're fighting for power. And that's what's really gross about it. So yeah, for me, they've really let it down, let Gaza down, let Palestinians down, and let people in this country down for being that, you know, they are supposed to be that example of moral decency and what is right. It's not supposed to be the people that are having to tell the politicians what to say. I might be in poverty, I might have a difficult life, I might not look like the other politicians, I might not have a really successful career, but all voices matter. And as soon as someone kind of steps forward and says, you know, we are just as capable of being involved in this as anyone else, I've seen it's just massively energized everyone. Generally, I am someone that's quite optimistic and quite hopeful and quite positive in everything I kind of try and move forward in. I think that's just because of all the negativity. It's like you just pull away, resist. But that's one thing I've really seen as empowered people. And it's been so amazing to see people you see that energy build up and that hope build up and then just be like, I want to be a part of this. And I really think that if I can get my message out there, if people can see and just actually hear me, I just think it's just, I want people to feel empowered. I want people to find their voices, lean in, because it just takes such a weight off you once you actually do find that voice and kind of share who you are, what you care about, and lead with your values and principles. And people need that opportunity now. So for the people of Warrington North and across the country, in places where you've got maybe a Labour incumbent, Labour will get into power. That's guaranteed. But ultimately, there needs to be a strong opposition to them in government. And we can't allow that to be Reform. As 1 point below the Tories in the polls, we need a really strong, progressive, hopeful voice. So I would encourage everyone, lean in, come and ask me questions, but vote independent, to have a voice that isn't going to be towing party lines and will push back and will actually speak and push for the people of Warrington North.